Good morning, I am Dr. Roy and I am going to discuss today atrophic rhinitis with you people. As you all know that we have started discussing rhinitis in various types and we have covered these topics in our previous lectures. The term atrophic rhinitis is also known as eczema, and please bear it in mind that it is a chronic inflammation of the nose. Atrophic rhinitis is divided into two types, that is the primary and secondary. As you can note, secondary is usually due to some known cause, but in primary atrophic rhinitis we do not have a specific or exact cause that is known to us. There are various theories that have been advanced regarding its causation. We will discuss these causes one by one, but before that I would like you to see a picture of the examination findings of a patient who presented with atrophic rhinitis. Here you can note that the nasal chamber is filled with greenish crusts that are causing obstruction of the nasal nose, and you cannot see anything beyond it. Okay, the primary atrophic rhinitis, as I've already discussed, there are no known exact causes. There are various theories that have been floated, so we will be discussing it one by one. This mnemonic hernia will help you remember the etiological factors for the primary atrophic rhinitis. Hereditary factors, or the theory that supports the hereditary factors as cause of atrophic rhinitis, is strengthened by the fact that the disease, that is the atrophic rhinitis, is noted to involve more than one member in the same family. Next is endocrine disturbances. Primary atrophic rhinitis or even secondary, these are more commonly noted in female patients. So from a endocrine perspective, it usually starts at puberty and ceases at menopause. The next theory that has been floated is the role of racial factors. Atrophic rhinitis has been noted more commonly in people of white and yellow races, and there are very few cases that have been noted in black population. The next theory that has been floated is the role of different vitamins and macronutrients in atrophic rhinitis. Atrophic rhinitis, specifically primary atrophic rhinitis, is noted in less affluent or impoverished societies as compared to Western population. There has been noted a deficiency of specifically vitamin A, vitamin D and iron. Next etiological factor that has been floated as a cause of primary atrophic rhinitis is the infective etiology. There are various organisms that have been cultured from the nose of the patients who suffer from atrophic rhinitis, and these are the Klebsiella ozzani, the Proteus vulgaris, E. coli, Staph, etc. Please take a mental note that these organisms have been noted to be secondary invaders. They are all considered to be secondary invaders rather than the primary causative organisms for the primary atrophic rhinitis. And last of all is the autoimmune process. The body mounts an immune response against the nasal antigens and results in destruction of the nasal mucosa and the surrounding structures. That is the turbinates. Right, the pathology of the disease. As we all know that the nose and paranasal sinuses are normally lined by ciliated columnar epithelium. But in atrophic rhinitis, this epithelium is replaced by a stratified squamous type of epithelium. There is associated atrophy of the seromucinous glands, venous blood sinusoids, and nerve element. It is important for you people to take a mental note here. I'll reiterate the fact that there is atrophy of the nerve elements, and that is responsible for one of the characteristics of the disease. We'll discuss it later on, but for the time being, just keep it at the back of your memory that there is atrophy of all the nasal structures, including the nerve elements. The next thing that you would note is the obliterative endarteritis, in which the arteries in the mucosa, periosteum and bone are involved. And there is associated atrophy of the bony turbinates, leading to a wide nasal chamber. And lastly, the paranasal sinuses, due to their arrested development, are small in size, and for this very fact it is difficult in these patients to perform a Caldwell lung operation. Okay, regarding the clinical features, as you have noted previously, the disease, when we discussed the endocrine disturbances, was more commonly involving female patients. So this is the first point that you can note in the slide. It most commonly involves female patients. And she is usually a social outcast for the reason that there is a pungent, putrid or a foul smell coming from her nose. But at the same time, the patient herself is unaware of that smell, and that leads to her being a social outcast. The term which you can note here is merciful anosmia. An is a term that pertains negatively to something. The patient is unaware of the smell, that is the stench which is arising from her nose. You've already noted the reason for merciful anosmia in the previous slide. That was the atrophy of the nerve elements in the nose that led to destructive changes and was responsible for this merciful anosmia. The patient is stinking very bad, but she herself is unaware of this stench. What the patient complains is nasal obstruction. She finds it difficult to breathe through the nose. The reason for that is there are a lot of crusts in her nose which are greenish or grayish black. And once you try to remove these crusts, it leads to bleeding from the nose, or in medical gibberish, which is also known as epistaxis. Once you take out these crusts, the nasal chambers appear very roomy, and there are atrophy of the turbinates, meaning that the turbinate bones are reduced to mere ridges. Once you note the nasal mucosa, it appears pale as compared to the normal pink nasal mucosa that is present. The other features that you can note in a patient having atrophic rhinitis are septal perforation or dermatitis of the nasal vestibule. These are all the destructive changes that you can note. Apart from this, there can be a saddle nose deformity. And the other organs that can be involved with the atrophic rhinitis include the pharynx and larynx. In pharynx, once you do a 70-degree telescopy, you would note that mucosa there, that is the pharynx, also is pale, it's dry, and there are crusts seen involving or painting the pharynx as well. The next organ that I discussed with you was the larynx. Again, the laryngeal mucosa appears pale, and sometimes you can note crust there as well. So the patient complains of associated cough or the hoarseness of voice. So please suspect this. If you find a patient who presents with nasal obstruction, she's a female patient and you note a stench coming out of her nose, she's also complaining of hoarseness of voice on cough or cough, you should instantly think of atrophic laryngitis as well. Apart from this, there can be hearing impairment. In the next slide, you note that the paranasal sinuses are opaque for the reason that the walls of the paranasal sinuses were very thick, they had a arrested development and were very small in size. Regarding the treatment, it is incumbent upon you people to note that the disease can recover spontaneously on its own. There is no proven treatment, medical treatment categorically for atrophic rhinitis, but it helps to establish a hygiene and curtails the smell that is coming from the nose of the patient. So, of all the treatments, I would like to discuss nasal irrigation. You ask the patient to make a solution that is composed of normal saline, and you ask them to put 2 parts of normal sodium chloride in 280 ml of water. Apart from sodium chloride, 1 part each of sodium bicarbonate and sodium biborate is added to 280 ml of water. Hence, you end up making a solution and you ask the patient to irrigate her nose initially for first few days 3 or 4 times daily, but like after 2 or 3 months the patient can do it for once daily as well. The purpose of this nasal irrigation is that it loosens the crust and helps you remove those crusts. It may be difficult for you in the initial stages to remove the hard crust merely by irrigation. So, first these crusts are supposed to be loosened and then with forceps they can be mechanically removed, or else you can make use of a suction tip as well. The next medical treatment that you can float is ask the patient to paint her nose with 25% glucose in glycerin. The next medical treatment, the medical arm that can be employed in patients having atrophic rhinitis is the use of local antibiotics. You can ask the patient to spray her nose locally or paint her nose with a mixture of an anti-ozona solution that is composed of chlormycetin, estradiol, and vitamin D2. It has shown to inhibit the growth of proteolytic organisms in the nose that were responsible for the foul smell. As we have discussed in the start of the treatment that the main aim of our medical arm or the medical treatment was to maintain a nasal hygiene and keep the nose free of crusts that was responsible for the nasal obstruction with which the patient presented. Estradiol sprays have also been noted to increase the vascularity of nasal mucosa and helps in regeneration of the seromucinous glands. As the term denotes atrophic rhinitis, it makes you think of atrophy that is involving all the nasal structures. So the blood vessels were also atrophied. The role of this estradiol spray or therapy is help them regenerate. Next is the placental extract that has been deployed in the treatment of atrophic rhinitis, and it has been injected submucosally in the nose, which has been noted to provide some relief in patients of atrophic rhinitis, but not always. Then patients who have been given 1 gram of streptomycin per day for a period of 10 days has shown some good results in reducing the amount of crusting and the foul smell that has been noted from the nose of the patient. But again, it is under trial and not a recommended treatment for everyone. It can lead to the systemic use of streptomycin can lead to a derangement of the renal function, so it is not possible to make use of this antibiotic in all the patients. Next and the last of all medical treatment is the use of the potassium iodide, which has been given by mouth or orally. It helps liquefaction of the nasal secretion and thus helps to easily remove the nasal crust. We have covered the medical treatment, but please take a mental note that these are only targeted for removing the nasal crust and maintaining a good nasal hygiene, as they are not the definitive treatment for atrophic rhinitis. But once you have given a question or asked atrophic rhinitis in the viva, please discuss both the medical and the surgical treatment. Never jump directly on the surgical treatment or mere medical treatment. Apart from medical arm, we can make use of the surgical treatment. Previously, Young's operation was deployed for the treatment of atrophic rhinitis, but it has been superseded by a contemporary approach or contemporary operation which has been called a modified Young's operation. Young's operation involved nerving the nasal passages and it completely blocked the nasal passages. And after 6 months, the nose was again reopened and checked, and this guy Young found good results, and that the nasal mucosa regenerated and turbinates were almost normal in size. But there was associated morbidity associated with Young's operation, that was a complete nasal obstruction. So that was later on modified to avoid the discomfort of bilateral nasal obstruction. And this modification was called modified Young's operation. In modified Young's operation, in contrast to Young's operation, the nose was partially closed. It was not completely closed. This is the important thing, or the only difference that you people at your level need to know. The difference between Young's and modified Young's operation is that in modified Young's operation, you partially close the nasal cavities, and again after a period of 6 months to 12 months, you again note the nasal cavity and the nasal mucosa and turbinates have regrown. Lastly, we can make use of the narrowing of nasal cavities. As the nasal chambers are very wide in atrophic rhinitis, therefore air currents dry up the nasal secretions, leading to crust formation. So we narrow the size of the nasal airway and we help to relieve the symptoms. Among the various techniques that have been deployed in narrowing the nasal cavities, we can make use of Teflon paste that have been injected submucosally in the nose. Apart from that, we can make use of fat, cartilage, bone, or even Teflon strips that are placed under the mucoperiosteum of the floor and the lateral wall of the nose, or the mucoperichondrium of the septum. So there's a difference between mucoperiosteum and mucoperichondrium. Chondrium is for cartilage. So the only cartilage that you can note in the nose is the septal cartilage. So it is to be placed under the mucoperichondrium of the septum. And lastly, you can section and cause medial displacement of the lateral wall of the nose, thereby narrowing the nasal cavities and reducing the amount of air currents that are directly hitting the nasal cavities and ending up in drying the nasal secretion, causing crust formation. Yes, the next etiology is the secondary atrophic rhinitis. As we have noted that there were no specific factors or etiological factors noted for primary atrophic rhinitis, but in secondary atrophic rhinitis we have noted that different diseases like syphilis, lupus, leprosy and rhinoscleroma can cause, or they may cause, destruction of the nasal structures, which leads to atrophic changes. Apart from these medical conditions, patient who has received radiotherapy to nose, or there has been turbinectomy or excessive surgical debridement or removal of turbinates, they can also develop this secondary atrophic rhinitis. But the clinical features remain the same, that is nasal obstruction and the foul smell that comes out from the nose. But in these secondary atrophic rhinitis, you have a well established etiological factor. Whereas for The primary atrophic rhinitis, we have noted only the possible theories that can contribute, but no exact cause is known. The last of all is the unilateral atrophic rhinitis. Please take a mental note that atrophic rhinitis is most of the time a bilateral condition. It is supposed to involve both the sides of the nasal chamber, but there is a condition in which if there is extreme deviation of the nasal septum, the other side appears very wide, it's roomy, and again the pathophysiology remains the same. The air currents, they strike the wider side of the nasal chamber, and they end up drying the nasal secretions and form crust, which are responsible for the nasal obstruction. We have covered this topic of atrophic rhinitis. If you have anything or any query, please feel free to ask on your WhatsApp group. Thank you.